go on to get the victory over the Steelers 25-10. Chargers now 4-0 in prime time this season. As for Pittsburgh, well, it's a different story. They've dropped all 5 primetime games. Not quite the bright lights they wanted to play under. Here at the desk alongside Melvin Gordon, Brian McFadden, and Jonathan Jones. And JJ, you said pregame, we sat at this very desk, and you said this was going to be an ugly game. You said it was going to be a murky game, and I like to give credit when credit is due because indeed it was. We saw a safety. We saw a doink off the uprights, 10 punts in this game, but what ultimately tipped the scales in the Chargers' behalf?
Well, I'll tell you this. While I did think it would be an ugly game, I thought it would be a closer game. And let's also not give too much credit to Jonathan Jones. He did choose the Pittsburgh Steelers would win this game. Very wrong about that one. Ultimately, I saw a Chargers team that, under Jim Harbaugh, continues to outperform the talent that is on that roster. He is a force multiplier as a head coach. There's only a couple of these dudes that have ever been created by the good creator. And Jim Harbaugh is one of them, that when you are down 2 tackles, your top 2 tackles, it does not matter. When you are faced with a defense that is playing incredibly well, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, doesn't matter. When you need Aaron Rodgers, or you think Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for 300 yards, no, he's not. He's going to throw for half that. The Chargers came to play tonight, even though it was ugly at times.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Melvin, on this one?
I mean, what I said happened. I was the lone wolf over here.
You were.
But they got it done. I knew they had to show me that their secondary, that they can do it 2 weeks in a row. And I just didn't believe it. You know, you show me 2 weeks in a row, then I'll be able to believe it. Ladd went and did his thing. I knew he had some choices tonight, and they found some prey out there, and they made the best of it.
And went hunting indeed, but there's a narrative that's out there. It says when Justin Herbert, he's elite when he plays in a clean pocket, but he's vulnerable when he is under duress. He was sacked 5 times. He was hit 8 times in this game. But B-Mac, how do you evaluate his performance when you're considering he's playing shorthanded on his O-line?
He's tough. He's a gritty quarterback, and he embodies his head coach. I oftentimes say the team is a reflection of who the head coach is in terms of their football DNA and their personality. And Coach Harbaugh is a fiery guy. He's a tough-minded coach. He doesn't mind going to work, bringing his lunch pail. And his players embody that same football DNA. And that's what we saw because, yes, Kiana, they beat up Justin Fields. They touched him up. They sacked him. He was bruised. He had a bruise on his neck. He was limping at one point in time, but he never blinked. He kept running into that smoke and looking for whatever it was he needed to deliver, and he delivered the goods. And that's why this is a team, to JJ's point, when you feel like they don't have enough in terms of talent, they have enough. Yeah. Coach Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the National Football League, in my opinion. Him and Sean McVay in doing more with less. Because you would never look at the Chargers, depending on who they're playing in terms of playoff caliber opponents, and say they're the more talented team on the football field. They're used to being in that position where they might not be the most talented, but they perform and they exceed the expectations. And that's why they were able to out-Steeler the Pittsburgh Steelers in tonight's matchup. So
with that being said, JJ, would you say that maybe the Chargers are being undervalued when you look at these teams in the AFC?
I don't know, because what we do still have is a taste in our mouths from that horrific playoff loss last year. Right, where it was Justin Herbert and it was Harbaugh, and they were playing in that Saturday afternoon game, and Herbert had the worst game of his career in the playoffs. And so we're still kind of holding our breath, right? And it's not a dissimilar conversation of the conversation we've had on a larger scale with the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, right? Everyone's waiting on the Chargers to break through, and then there's that whole, okay, well, when are they going to do the thing that they've done before? This is a team that, again, is outperforming. When you consider that Amarion Hampton isn't out there and they're on Vidal, when you consider that they're down 2 very good offensive tackles, and to your point about, Justin Herbert can't stay clean, they're going to struggle. They have not struggled with their backups. When you consider you can't really name a whole lot of pass rushers outside of Khalil Mack to the average fan, this is a team that is still getting the job done. So credit them, no doubt, but if they are going to play in January, and I do believe that they will, we need to see them actually play in January and get that dub for the first time in years.
I think recency bias serves us the memories of what has happened in times past when it comes to the Chargers in the postseason. But B-Mac, I do want to flip to the other side of this matchup because we think about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's locked under 200 yards passing, and this run game can't get going. 0 for 9 on third down. What would you have liked to see from the Steelers offense in this game?
Well, it seemed like they never could establish a rhythm. And there were some plays to be made, especially in the first half, and Aaron Rodgers seemed to be a bit off. Yes. You talked about missing DK Metcalf on a deep over route. That should have been a touchdown. You talked about missing Jonnu Smith on a third down opportunity where he was wide open by himself. You threw the ball too high. That was an incompletion. You had to settle for a field goal that you missed. Those are missed opportunities, and these are things you cannot have surface when you're playing against a playoff caliber team like the Chargers, especially on the road. When you look at what Aaron Rodgers has done before tonight's matchup, very, very efficient, making timely plays. Tonight, it seemed like he was a bit off from start to finish, and they don't have the talent to be able to overcome those mishaps offensively when their quarterback is not at his best. He completed 48% of his passes. That's not Aaron Rodgers.
That's not Aaron Rodgers.
Especially what he's done in recent ball games. So for him, he was a bit off. And like I said, man, not having another guy at the wide receiver position, you talked about the sense of urgency in trying to acquire a wide receiver talent.
Right.
It surfaced in tonight's matchup because when you take DK Metcalf out of the ball game, who do you trust? Who do you rely on? He hasn't found that second up in terms of wide receivers for them as of late.
I feel like this game made a lot of people kind of scratch their heads when you're looking at that trade deadline and maybe some of these moves not being made for some of these receivers that were available in the market. But we think about Aaron Rodgers, how he came into this season with a clear expectation of just elevating the Steelers offense, held in check. But Melvin, did you read anything maybe just in his body language or his style of play that suggested that maybe this was more than just a matchup issue?
No, I mean, usually the moment's never too big for A-Rod, but you can tell out there, I mean, it was just throws that he usually make that he didn't tonight. And that's just football, you know. It happens. Some days you're on, some days you're off. We're just so used to him playing at this high level that those throws are expected from him. And he was a little off today. You can see it, but I'm sure next week he'll get back on track and he'll get the Pittsburgh Steelers right where they need to be.
And we even heard during the broadcast, they were saying a lot about how when Rodgers does get out of the pocket, typically when he does, he's making some of these throws. But this game, he did not play like that Aaron Rodgers that we've seen this season.
Yeah, Jesse Minter had a really good game plan. You asked me about what the mindset should be defensively against Aaron Rodgers. Number one, never tipping your hand, showing what you're doing. Number two, you want to manipulate his eyes. And number three, make him uncomfortable. Remember I said last week against the Indianapolis Colts, he was fairly comfortable for the majority of that ball game. Tonight, yes, they only sacked him 3 times, but that pocket was collapsing instantly in terms of passing opportunities. So for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this was a very, very important ball game for either side. For the Chargers in terms of who they're chasing in their neighborhood, the Denver Broncos, who they're trying to keep separation from, the Kansas City Chiefs. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, who you're trying to keep separation from, the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. So if you're Baltimore, you won twice today. You took care of your business against the Minnesota Vikings, and the Pittsburgh Steelers lost. So now you're 1 game behind the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is a weird thing to say when you look at Baltimore weeks ago being 1-5.
1-5.
Yeah.
And now just 1 game out of first place in the division.
Exactly. And they have both games against the Steelers coming up. So 1 game behind, whatever. Once you play them, that's going to decide it, right? It's weeks 14 and weeks 18 with the Ravens and Steelers. After that's it, right? Because you can more or less be even the rest of the way. That is what is ultimately going to determine this. Pittsburgh also ran into a Jesse Minter and Chargers defense at a very bad time. Because you include this game, the last 3 games, this defense has allowed just 2 touchdowns. Now, Tennessee scored it in a couple of different ways, special teams and defense last week. But this was a very bad time to catch the Chargers. And we see right here the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule. Again, that week 14 at Baltimore, week 18. That could be a win or go home.
And also, too, JJ, we can't overlook Cincinnati beat them a few weeks ago.
That was a bad loss.
Right. So right now, when you look at how the Pittsburgh Steelers are going about their business, you talked about consistency. You needed to see consistency from the secondary, the defense in totality. Any one of those teams could beat Pittsburgh in terms of Buffalo, Chicago. You got Cincinnati once again. You talked about the Ravens. It's a very, very difficult task the rest of the way in terms of knowing the room for error is at its bare minimum.
It's very interesting. We don't have that conversation of winners and losers, but you make a really good point. This is a double win for the Baltimore Ravens. But really briefly, before we wrap this up, Melvin, I got to come to you because we did see some history etched in the Chargers records book with Keenan Allen getting that receptions record. You were saying,
Steelers Nation, this one stings, and it stings bad. We went into Sofi Stadium riding high after an electric win over the Colts, full of hope and momentum. But Sunday night turned into a nightmare. The Pittsburgh Steelers were dominated from the first snap to the final whistle by the Los Angeles Chargers, falling 25-10 in a game that proved we're still a long way from consistent excellence. Here's what went wrong and what it means. 1. No-show offense, first half and entire game. Right out of the gate, the Steelers' offense looked flat, disjointed. They managed just 77 yards in the first half and went 0 for 5 on third downs. The Chargers' defense, meanwhile, sacked Rodgers for a safety, swarmed the pocket, and turned 3 distinct turnovers into momentum and points. Aaron Rodgers had 161 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a stat line his worst of the year. At one point, his passer rating crashed to the high teens. That's unacceptable for a veteran QB leading a team in a win-now window. 2. Defense finally looked vulnerable. We've talked about how last week the D showed what it can be, but this week they proved how far from peak form they still are. Chargers converted 4 out of 9 third downs in the second half. Time of possession tilted completely. The offense couldn't sustain drives, the defense kept going back on the field, and the wear showed. There were big plays surrendered. 58-yard catches, deep runs, and miscues that opened the floodgates. Walkaway moment? With under 10 minutes left, the deficit hit 22 when the Chargers broke free. 3. Injuries, depth, and discipline problems piled up. Cornerback Darius Slay left with a concussion in the second quarter. Nickel, safety rotations, freshness, all compromised. Special teams, muffed punt. Penalties at the worst times. Drives that had promise ended in nothing. These are the little things that kill big nights, and the Steelers had their share. 4. The moment-to-moment failure underlined a bigger issue: championship caliber inconsistency. Yes, we had a badass win over the Colts, but 1 week later, we look like a team that can be steamrolled. That's not what great teams do. Too much up and down, not enough Steeler football, as save-yourself quarterback and veteran voices pointed out. The AFC North window is still open, but this loss handed back some power to the rivals. We're 5-4. Having a lead now means nothing if we can't protect it. So, where do we go from here? We regroup. This loss has to sting so that it drives change. Coaching must show up. Quinn Rodgers must recognize he's off his game and get back to his standard. The offense must add weapons or sharpen what it has. The defense must stop feeling the wear and step up. The front office must evaluate if this roster is enough or if upgrades are needed. And we must remember, the season is long. We've got division games coming up. We're still in first place, but we can't cling to that. We have to defend it. Steelers Nation, I believe we will bounce back. I believe this loss, as ugly as it was, exposes the gap, not to punish us, but to motivate us. We have the pieces, we have the coaching, we have the playoff push mindset. Now it's about execution, focus, and finishing. So, here's my call to you. What was your biggest takeaway from this loss? Where do you want to see us improve first? The offense, defense, or leadership? Drop your comments below. If you believe the Steelers will rebound, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Wire for heated reaction, deep breakdowns, and the journey ahead. Black and gold forever. Let's go Steelers.